Imagine you're going through a normal day, let's say a day at work, and your life instantly changes in a second. Now, think about what makes you you. Your personality, your identity, your choices, your emotions, all of those change within a second because of one single injury. Now, in the 1800s, one shockingly real-life case forced scientists to wonder if your personality and our brains are really connected. This story might sound extreme, but it is very important because it helps scientists understand how the brain controls us. This all comes from the real-life story of Phineas Gage. So today, we'll be talking about who he was, how his accident happened and how it changed him, and how it helped scientists learn more about the brain. To really understand why this case is so important, we need to look at who Phineas Gage was. Before the accident, Gage was 25 at the time, and was known as a hard-working and respectful railroad foreman, a foreman being classified as a skilled worker whose job was to lead his crew in jobs such as construction. He was specifically described as an efficient worker and a capable foreman who was also very energetic and persistent, as said by the History of Human Sciences. He worked on railroad construction in Vermont in the 1840s, supervising crews and handling dangerous explosives. His employers trusted him because of his leadership and his careful decision-making. Now Gage, 25 at the time, was focused on building his future and his career, just like so many of you, which is why the story is so important to us and it also feels so real. Also, Dr. Harlow from the History of Human Sciences explained that Gage had a well-balanced mind, which is ironic as you'll see here in a little bit. Also, according to an article said by the University of Akron, Gage became fitful, irreverent, and irresponsible at times, and at times had the greatest profanity. Now, because doctors and co-workers knew who he was before the accident, they could clearly compare Gage's personality before and after. This case could be considered one of the first major examples of linking the brain and personality. You could also kind of see it as one of the first major clues into solving the mystery of the brain. Now that we kind of understand who Phineas was before his accident, we can take a closer look at the accident itself and how it completely changed him. So, on September 13th, 1848, a tamping iron, which is a 3-foot by 7-inch, 13-pound metal rod, went right through his skull. Him and his crew were using explosive to clear a rock for railroad building in Vermont, and while they're stuffing explosive powder into a hole, it caught a spark and blew right through his skull. To give you kind of a better picture, it went through his temple, kind of through behind his eye, and out through his forehead, even though that sounds kind of gross. This rod passed through the majority of his frontal lobe and suffered extensive damage to it, as claimed by the Journal of Medicine and Life. The frontal lobe is the region of the brain that is sat kind of around your forehead area, and it is completely in charge of your personality, your decision making, and your behavior. And at the time, scientists did not fully grasp the importance of this frontal lobe and how it played a major role in your personality. Even after the accident, Gage survived a couple years later, and since at the time injuries like this were typically fatal, his miraculous survival gave a scientist the super rare opportunity to observe how severe brain damage can affect brain and personality. Then, after the accident, Gage experienced noticeable changes in his personality and behavior, especially how he behaved socially and how he made decisions. Before the accident, we obviously know how he was kind and respectful and hardworking, but this completely changed after that pole plunged through his head. He became mean, inconsistent, and impulsive. The once patient man was now considered unrecognizable. So, after examining what exactly happened during the accident and how it changed him, we can now take a deeper dive into how his case had effect on science and what researchers learned from it. Phineas Gage became one of the most important cases in early neuroscience because his injury helped scientists understand the connection between the brain and personality. Researchers explained how Gage developed emotional and behavioral disorders similar to acquired sociopathy, as claimed by the Journal of International Neuropsychology Society. Sociopathy itself is a mental health condition classified as a disregard for social norms, rules, and rights of others. Before the Gage case, scientists had no idea that the different lobes had different effects on behaviors and mental functions. So, after doctors had observed these changes in behaviors in Gage after the accident, they then went to take a deeper dive and learn about the inner workings between each lobe of the brain. So, researchers still study Gage today because of interoception, which is the sense that allows the brain to interpret, detect, and respond to signals that are happening within the body. This could be the key to understanding emotional processes after frontal damages, also said by the Journal of International Neuropsychology Society. This means that scientists continue using Gage's case today to understand how brain processes emotions, self-analysis, and social behavior after injuries. Even though Gage's case happened 175 years ago, scientists still use and reference his story because of the continuous arising questions about the brain and behavior. So, if you've ever taken a psych class, had an MRI, concussion study, talked about mental health, or even wondered why we behave the way we do, you've already connected discoveries that cases like Phineas Gage helped to inspire. So today, we looked at how, at least in my opinion, Phineas Gage was a cultural hero in at least the psychological realm. We specifically looked at him before the accident, how he was a kind and patient man. Then we looked at the accident itself, how it went a pull through his forehead and through the frontal lobe, and how that made him a mean, short-tempered man. And then we discussed how his case as a whole affected and helped scientists in the long run. Phineas Gage never meant to become a part of history, but his case was so much more than just a railroad accident. His injury completely altered the way scientists understand the human brain. And more than 175 years later, his case reminds us that even a single human life can completely change history in science, history, and even the way we view ourselves. Thank you.